All right, folks. It says we're live, so I'm going to believe it. Although last time we had all kinds of weird technical problems getting live, I blame it on the demons. Um, but yeah, we're live, and so welcome everybody to another Esoterica live stream. I'm really happy to be able to do these every 3 weeks. The new cycle is 3 weeks of making original content, and then on the fourth week we do a live stream and take some questions and hang out. And I really enjoy it because it gives me an opportunity to connect with you guys, which which is really important to me. As you can imagine, doing this kind of work can feel a little alienating from time to time. So it's really great to be able to reach out at least through the live stream and connect with some of y'all, especially folks who I see in the comments a lot, and folks who I see just interacting, and also folks who are part of the Patreon support. So really, and chat. Um, but before I do that, let me just make sure that everything's coming through clearly. You guys can hear me okay. Everything is clear and good. Because I know that live streaming can be always a little bit of a hit and miss thing when it comes to the quality of the stream. So hopefully the video quality is good and you can hear me okay. So just let me know in the chat that it sounds okay. But as always, it's actually been a really an interesting couple of weeks, 3 weeks on the channel. And again, we're celebrating 2 years of Esoterica today. So I'll mention a little bit more about that in just a moment. But this past 3 weeks has been really great. I've really enjoyed making the content for the past 3 weeks. Really enjoyed working with Dr. Angela Puka over at Angela Symposium. And if you haven't subscribed to her channel, if you like Esoterica, you would absolutely love Dr. Angela Puka. She's a really wonderful scholar and a fine person. So make sure to go check out her channel over at Angela Symposium. We got to work together on this really fun Austin Osman Spar episode, which I say spar, and apparently most other people say spare. If you're wondering why I say spar and not spare, it's because when I was in Amsterdam studying Western Esotericism, someone actually corrected me on my pronunciation. I used to say spare, and someone who was very knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable than I was about chaos magic and all that, they said that the correct pronunciation is spar. And for whatever reason, their correction of my pronunciation of Austin Osman Spare's name stuck, and I've been saying Spar ever since. I'm kind of curious if they were right, because it's completely possible that they were wrong and they were just like messing with me or something, and I just now have a completely wrong pronunciation. So I have no idea. But at any rate, it was really great to work on something a little bit more contemporary, although he's still almost 100 years back in time in many ways. So it was really great to work with Dr. Puka on some Austin Osman Spar. I have no fucking idea. I don't know if there's any video of him saying his name. This is like the Crowley debate. Apparently, a lot of people say Crowley, but I think that Crowley himself liked to pronounce it as Crowley. In fact, I think he wrote poems where he rhymed Crowley with holy, because obviously he's full of himself. A good reason to be full of himself, but that pronunciation difference as well. So at any rate, it was really great working with Dr. Puka on the episode on Osman Spare. And Dr. Angela Puka, Dave, Puca. You can look her up on YouTube under Angela's Symposium. She's really great. And then I got to work on the episode on the alchemy stuff, or the GIF debate, which will never end. I'm on Team GIF, but whatever. You can pitchfork me in the comments if you like. It was really great also working on the Nicolas Flamel episode, which is really fun because it's a little bit of myth busting, but a little bit of alchemy too. And so it was really great I always like when I can do a little bit of myth busting, but also maintain some relationship to real alchemical theory. And the episode on Nicolas Flamel was really fun in that regard. Speaking of alchemical equipment, you can see my little still in the background where I pretend to do alchemy. And you're not going to do alchemy in that little thing. That's not going to happen. But in the last episode last week, which was really weird to me because it was actually a very poorly performing episode, but it was so much fun for me to make, and I don't know why it was so. I actually have an idea why it was so poorly performing. Was the episode on Irenaeus? I really, really love Irenaeus. I really like his work against the heresies. I don't really agree with him, and um, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not having talking the fight of the Gnostics versus the Orthodoxy. But, I really enjoyed reading the Irenaeus stuff, and that was a lot of fun, although apparently not many people were really interested in the episode. I think that and you guys can correct me or provide your insights into the comments. I think that people just have a knee-jerk negative reaction to anything about the Catholic Church. I think that many people have been burned, and I think legitimately burned. The Catholic Church has done horrifying, horrendous things. Trust me, I know. Um, Catholic Church has been the bad guy for a lot of years, and I think anyone associated with the Catholic Church and the Orthodoxy, just people just have an allergic reaction to it, and which is a pity because there's real genius there, and the Catholics have produced real spiritual insight. I mean, it's a numbers game. They're the biggest game in town, so there's going to be a lot of evil and a lot of good, a lot of weal and a lot of woe, and so, yeah, I find it a pity because I feel like, I think I've said this before about Christianity and Catholicism in particular, is that I think a lot of folks interested in esotericism and the occult, uh, there's a there's a really unfortunate situation where people, because they get so burned by institutional Christianity, they throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I find that if you do that, you really shoot yourself in the foot. Trust me, I got no truck with institutional Catholicism. I got no truck with the kind of regressive politics of the Catholic Church, and the murderous genocidal history of a great deal of Catholicism. But the murderous genocidal aspect of aspects of the history of Catholicism doesn't undo all of the amazing things that Catholic people have done in the past. Institutional Catholic people, from Hildegard of Bingen, uh, 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 Julia of Avila, I mean, Heidevich, and that also goes with Irenaeus. You know, he was a genius in his own right. So I don't like the idea of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. In the same way that I will say that the same thing is true with a lot of philosophers that I also, Martin Heidegger is a philosopher who I really admire, and he was a bad opportunistic Nazi. He's not the kind of guy I want to hang out with. Like, he's the kind of guy that I might beat his ass if I saw him in real life, right? Like, punch that little ratty mustache right off his face, and that doesn't make him not a genius. Doesn't make him not a genius. And so but he was a genius, and so learning from him, warts and all, is an important part of that process. So, anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but all that to say is, I encourage folks not to throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to Christianity, and even institutional Christianity, like around the Catholic Church and things like that. Um, you do yourself a disservice by looking at the muck and not seeing the diamonds in the muck, because there are diamonds in the muck. Let me convince you of that. And because there's diamonds in the muck, doesn't make the muck go away. It doesn't make me a muck apologist because I cover folks on in the Catholic world. I just want to say that it's some of it's worth salvaging, and your spirituality and your historical understanding are, I think, you sell yourself short by not diving into that stuff. I mean, me as a religious Jewish person, I really love reading Catholic mystics. I find that, they deeply inspire something very powerful in me. Um, I don't believe that their zombie rabbi is the Messiah. So anyway, that's just to say that. But if you haven't seen the Irenaeus episode, it was a lot of fun to make. I put a lot of jokes in there, so maybe you can just go back just for the jokes if you want to do that. But that's the thing. Um, all right. Um, oh, the other thing I want to say, this is the sort of 2-year celebration of Esoterica. I should have gotten a beer or something, right? Should have a glass of wine or a glass of absinthe or something. I should have gotten something. Um, but I didn't. I don't have any sort of thing to toast with. But maybe I'm gonna. I need to get something to toast with. But this is 2 years of Esoterica, folks. I've been doing Esoterica where for 2 years. And on the one hand, it seems like I've been doing it a lot longer. In fact, some people have said, "Yeah, I remember your episodes back when you were like 6 years ago." And I'm like, "You did not see any Esoterica episodes from 6 years ago. There might have been some other bearded weirdo talking about weird stuff on the internet 6 years ago, but it weren't me." Um, so on the one hand, it feels like I've been doing this a lot longer, and on the other hand, I can't believe it's just it's just 2 years. I really feel like we've covered so much ground. The channel's really come into its own. We've covered just I think I forgot how many episodes we have up. I think it's almost 200 or something like that. I haven't looked in. Um, uh, Foolish Fish. Hey, brother. Um, uh, hey, man. I love your content. I love you. You're just like just the most. There's something just so great about watching your content. Especially for folks who are practitioners. If you're not subscribed to Foolish Fish, go check him out. He has some of the best book reviews, occult news. He's just an amazing guy. I really appreciate his content in a lot of ways, and I'd love to work with you, Foolish Fish. If you want to shoot me a message, I'd love to team up and let's find some way to work together. I really appreciate you and your work. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do. And also, by the way, folks, I think Foolish Fish, you're close to 100,000 subscribers. Folks, go over and subscribe to his channel. I want to see him get to 100,000 ASAP. He deserves it. He makes fine content, and we share a love of books. You can see my antique book collection down there. But yes, absolutely, folks, go over there and subscribe to Foolish Fish. Get him up to 100,000 subscribers. He absolutely deserves it. So, um, but yeah, get in touch with me if you can. I'd love to chat with you, just even privately. You're a great guy. I really appreciate your content. But yeah, folks, 2 years. Thanks. I see some donations coming in. Thank you so much, Craig Delaney. Thank you so much for your donation, and Joe M. Thank you for those donations. And I'm going to get to the questions in just a little bit, folks. Don't worry. But I guess what I want to say is, it's been 2 years, and I am just blown away by how much support the channel has gotten. I'm blown away by the subscriber base that we've managed to get. We're up to 140,000 subscribers in 2 years, which I think is a pretty fast rate of growth. I don't know exactly all the stuff that goes along with YouTube and all that, but we're up to 140,000 subscribers. The whole project is solvent at some level. I'm able to support myself and actually make a decent wage, and that's all possible because of folks like you, making donations to the channel, being supporters. This channel is completely supported by donations. This is an experiment, and I really do mean experiment. This is an experiment in crowd-funded education. If you want to think about what I'm doing, Esoterica is a crowd-funded experiment in education, and that crowd-funded experiment in education is me gambling on the idea, and it was a gamble that I could create content, academic content on Western esotericism that I think, with a few exceptions, you can't get anywhere else. There are, of course, other folks like Angela who's doing some stuff on esotericism, but university level topics on alchemy, Kabbalah, the occult, magic, all the stuff, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, and basically I could do it in a way that I would give it all away for free. I would say, look, this is what I know. I've done the work in the university system to get the information, and just to give the information out and say, look, if you value the information, buy me a coffee once a month, right? Buy me a coffee, buy me a beer. It's when you sign up for $5 a month on Patreon, it's basically like buying me I think even pints and cost more than $5 now. It's like buying me a pint. It's like buying me a coffee. And the idea was, if enough people can support it, I'll keep doing it, and eventually I'll turn it into basically me creating an educational environment that is university level. And some people have complained about that, but I'll say more about that in a minute. But a university level content that, on the one hand, is free from all kinds of crazy biases about Atlanteans and aliens and Nazism, basically, and also doesn't take itself too seriously. And I'm not trying to sell you a line about how I'm a guru and I can tell you how to solve your marital problems with magic. I sure as hell can't do that. Thank God. um, But the idea basically is that I could do it, and it's worked. And it's worked because of y'all. It's worked because of y'all, right? I gamble on the possibilities could work, and it's worked, and it is working. I think it will continue to work, and that makes me super grateful. It makes me feel very blessed. It makes me feel, you can feel like a fool, folks. I'll be very honest, right? I'll wear my heart on my sleeve a little bit here. You can feel like a real fool going to the university and traveling and getting an education and going into a lot of debt. And then you don't get a job and no one cares what you do. And in fact, when you go to apply to the universities, they think that you're nuts, or they think that you're like, they think that you're somehow broken or bad, that you're a bad academic because you've studied esotericism, that you've decided to study this branch of human knowledge and not some respectable branch of human knowledge. And you don't get jobs, you don't get respect, you don't get anything. You get thrown undergraduate level crappy classes, and you're never allowed even to teach your subject matter, which is what I have my expertise in. You can feel stupid. You can feel betrayed by the university. You can feel like an idiot. You can feel like a fool, like you made bad life decisions, like you failed at life. And I have to say, having started Esoterica and having put myself out there as a person who does this as part of my professional life, um, I don't feel like a fool. I don't feel like a fool. I feel like a person who made good decisions, actually, who's worked hard to uncover some of the most difficult aspects of human philosophy, human spirituality, and I feel like I've done something right, not because of what I've done, but because of the affirmation that you guys have shown me. Right? I feel right because of how you guys make me feel, and the way you guys make me feel is blessed, is respected. It makes me feel happy. It makes me feel like I can walk through life knowing that I've actually done something right, and I can't thank you guys enough for that feeling, for the feeling that I'm not a fool, right? Or I may be a fool, but I'm not a fool in that way, maybe. Um, and that I've done something worthwhile in my life, and that I can reach thousands of people with content that's worthwhile for their life, for everything from their Dungeons and Dragons games to their deepest spirituality. And the fact that I can touch people um, just in their intellectual life, playing Dungeons and Dragons, making video games, writing short stories, and then to their spirituality, that makes me feel just incredibly blessed. So that's a long, winding, rambling things to say, just to say thank you guys. Thank all of you, from folks who leave comments, from folks who support me on Patreon, from the folks who throw me a couple bucks on PayPal, for the folks who just like tweet out content, even for people who leave mean comments, 'cause that still helps the algorithm. You guys have made this possible, and it's 2 years of a really incredible project that I've come to be proud of. And I don't want to say that. I don't want to sound like that in some mean way, like ooh, look how smart I am, because I'm not. I'm just some guy who knows a very niche thing, right? I know a very niche thing, and I'm very proud that that very niche thing that that I happen to know something about, that I can put it out there in a way that that's rewarding to others. So thank you. I really mean it. Thank you. Thank you so much for making it possible, for supporting me on Patreon, for supporting me on the super chats. I know there's some super chats that come through. I'm going to make sure to thank each of you. Um, but yeah, yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys. I really, really, really appreciate it. So with that long, winding thank you, which I really do mean, I think that long, winding thank yous, I think if you plan them in advance, they don't sound sincere, because maybe they're not, but I hope that this thank you is sincere. I hope it comes across as sincere, because yeah, I look at the content, I look at the comments, I look at how many folks have watched videos, and I'm just blown away. Thank you. All right, folks, let me jump up. Let me just say this to finish this part out. We're not going anywhere, right? This is 2 years into a project that I have every commitment to continuing as long as I can. We are scratched the surface of esoterica. You had best believe we have a ton more content. I could do a lifetime of this channel and still have scratched the surface of the things that need to be talked about, need to be discussed. And so Esoterica as a project isn't going anywhere, and I'm looking forward to keep continuing making content. I'm really looking forward to doing new kinds of content, experimental content, but always maintaining the same format at some level, maintaining the same rigorous standards when it comes to scholarly academic information, free from biases and conspiracy theories and racism and gatekeeping. Right, that's also a thing I just don't want. I don't want to have any part of. That you can rely on the information, and you can also rely on me that when I make a mistake, that I'll own it, I'll correct it, and I will. I'll do my best to fix my mistakes as I make them, which I certainly will, and I have, and I've tried to do some corrections in the past. So Esoterica is not going anywhere. We're going to keep making content, and we're going to try to continue making really the highest quality content I can. And I really appreciate all of y'all for helping support me in making that work possible. So let me get to some thank yous, because some folks have left some donations in the super chat, and all those folks deserve thanks. And I want to jump over to some questions, and of course, we're going to do the Q&A, and always, as always, we're going to do show and tell. Because what's a live stream without show and tell? You saw the weird shit behind me? I got weird stuff. Like, might as well show it all. You should like talk about it. So, welcome to my lair, as my partner calls it. So, welcome to the layer of Esoterica, where I keep a lot of weird stuff. And and yeah, let me do some thank yous, and let's do some questions. So, thank you, Joe M. I take it that you're a Freemason with the Freemason sign. I love Freemasonry. I'm not a Freemason myself, but every single Freemason I've ever met have just been super stand-up people. Um, yeah, I really appreciate all the Freemasons I've met. So I really appreciate the Freemason folks. Thank you, Jeff Altier, for your donation. Marco, thank you so much. High Desert, yeah, waking your interest in philosophy, now learning into esoterica. Awesome. Yeah. Philosophy is just a gateway drug to esoterica. Don't let them tell you differently than that. Don't let them tell you differently than that. Yeah, Antonio. Yeah, thank you so much for for the donation. Yeah, I love to make this content, and again, I think I make it. Hopefully, I make this, and hopefully, this is always received okay. But I like to make it academically rigorous, but also kind of fun, like sometimes even kind of silly. Because I don't know about y'all, but there's a thing about some esoteric stuff that it takes itself so seriously that it's sort of not fun anymore. And I just have to have some fun with this material. It's so weird sometimes, it's so bizarre that if I can't have fun with it, I just feel like I don't know, I feel like I've taken myself too seriously or something. So you guys will have to excuse me as I make jokes and things like that. Um, so it's I have to take it with a little, gotta make fun of it a little bit. So the Humanaut and Christopher, thank you guys for your donations. Fernando, thank you so much. And Sun Isha, thank you for yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys all for the super chats. And just all the kind words. I always go back and reread the chats afterwards just to make sure I grab everything. But I really appreciate all your kind comments, and thanks for the congratulations on 2 years. A lot of channels don't make it to 2 years, and a lot of them that do struggle to make it to any kind of success. And I'm very blessed to have this success that I've had. Yeah, thank you, Jeanette Waverly, for those kind words and for your donation. I appreciate it. Um, let's do some questions. Let's do some questions, folks. Yep, someone else dropped one. Baba Lawn. Thank you. That's a cool. It's like a tanuki with like the little fans. Is it a tanuki? I don't know. I think that those are like magical raccoons. I always think of the tanuki suit from Mario Brothers 3. All right. So let me scroll up and see if I can get some questions here. Some of the ones from the top have already been. I can't scroll back all the way up. So if you've left some at the very beginning, let me know and I'll try to get to them again. So all right, let me see here some questions folks have left of left. Is this a new yarmulke? No, this is the one that I always wear. This is my standard yarmulke. it's almost superstitious that if I lose it, if I leave it on the bedstand or something and I can't find it, I freak out. Um, I have like couple of other ones. I have a red one that I wear sometimes, and um, this is my standard one. I need to get a new one. This one's kind of getting a little ratty, um, so I need to get a new yarmulke. I need to get a new one. Maybe I'm going to be in New York. I'll mention that also. I'll be in New York next month, so I'll get one and maybe get a new one in New York. I like to try them on before I buy one. So. Um, Awesome. I'm glad you guys went over and subscribed to Foolish Fish. He's awesome. He's awesome. I love his content. Veritas says he that they want infallible truth. Well, you won't find that here. You will find lots of fallible stuff here. I'm mostly fallible, so sorry. Sorry. Is there going to be any any Eastern esotericism related episodes in the future? I would love to do that. I would just have to admit, I just don't know much about Eastern esotericism. There is a scholar that I've connected to who does work on Eastern spirituality, and I would love to get her on to do some work on Eastern esotericism, especially in the maybe the Japanese world, like Shingon Buddhism and stuff like that. So I just don't have the expertise in it, and it's one of those things where if I don't have expertise in it, I don't feel comfortable making direct content about it. And so it's just a question of what I know and what I don't know. And obviously, I don't want Esoterica to be limited only to Western spirituality, Western esotericism. And so, absolutely, I'd love to bring folks on to do that work because it's obviously incredibly important work. I just so happens that I'm ignorant in that regard, and I'd like to have someone to do that with them. But yeah, sure, I'd love to do that work. Absolutely, I'd love to bring in folks to do it. I just can't do it myself. You can't do all the things, and anyone who says that they can do all the things, you should be skeptical of the things that they do. One should be skeptical of the things that they do. Yeah, Carl. Yeah, I've heard Jackson Crawford also talk about the same thing. That I think he and I have carved similar paths for ourselves in terms of his work in his work in Old Norse and Viking stuff, which I really admire, and yeah, similar work here with Western esotericism. I think that I think there's one way of looking at it that we could look at ourselves perhaps as failed academics. I think another way of looking at it is the academy failed us, and we had to make our own way. And when the academy fails you, you can blame yourself, and you can internalize that, or you can say maybe the academy just doesn't have a place for me, and that's actually their problem. And I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to go with that. And that's not to say I want to turn my back on the academy. I think the academy is incredibly important, especially in the deterioration of our democracy right now. And I think the academy is very important, but I want, respect is a two-way street, and I want to be respected by the academy as much as I respect it, and I respect it a great deal. But if they're not giving me the opportunities that I need and deserve to do the work that I need to do, then I can't do that work there. I have to find alternative avenues. And thank goodness that YouTube is one of those alternative avenues. And thank goodness there are folks out there like y'all who help to support that work, who support that work. Let's see. Keep scrolling down and grab some questions. And so many really kind comments. I really appreciate those. Have you heard of an Arabic grimoire called Shams al Marif? Yes, it has been translated in English, and selections of it have been translated into English, and I just got it today. It's downstairs. I just opened the envelope today. So yeah, maybe I'll team up with Philip over at Let's Talk Religion. He and Zevi and I had a really great chat the other day. Zevi's from Seekers of Unity. We had a great chat the other day, and maybe I'll team up with him and do some of that work. I saw also someone donated. I think that's Babylon 2060. Thank you so much for the donation. It's a cool raccoon, I guess, or a cat. I don't know. All right, let me scroll back up and grab some. Yeah, everyone's saying I should grab some absinthe. I might grab some absinthe before this is over. It's only 2:30 in the afternoon here. You get started on the sauce that early. It might make for an interesting Shabbat. But yeah, maybe I'll grab something, at least a little glass of wine or something for a little l'chaim to celebrate. A little l'chaim to celebrate 2 years. Yeah, Joe Jones. Would love to if you occasionally read excerpts from text as well as their content. Yeah, I've thought about doing that. I thought about doing that, and sometimes if the text is short enough and it's in like an ancient language, sometimes I like to do that. Um, but yeah, sometimes the episodes just get so long. Where like the Irenaeus episode, I think I was almost 45 minutes long, and at that point, I think it's just so long that reading excerpts becomes a little draining. But yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. And my general assumption actually is that I would like folks who watch an episode of something. So if you watch an episode on, I don't know, Thunder Perfect Mind, the text from the Nagamati library, my hope is that once you've heard me go on about it for 20 minutes or whatever, 30 minutes, that you'd go read it. And so I'd hope folks would be reading that stuff. I find that really, in many ways, esoterica is sort of a signpost for you to be like, hey, go study this on your own. It's really awesome. Here's a way of getting a handle on it, so it's not so weird and crazy. Here's a sort of a guidepost to go get you to study it on your own. Because I certainly don't want esoterica to ever trick anyone who's watching my content to ever believe that because you watch an esoterica episode on anything that you now know something about that thing. You have an introduction to it. And absolutely, it's not like when you've watched an episode of Esoterica on Irenaeus that now you know about Irenaeus. No, now you have the stepping stone to go do the study of Irenaeus, or the stepping stone to go study this or whatever. So Esoterica is meant to be a as upper level introductory, and this is something I'll say too. I'll say this real fast before I move on. One of the complaints that I've gotten recently on the channel is that people have actually complained, and I've gotten some comments like this that have complained that esoterica is that the level of the content is too advanced. The level is too advanced, and I would guess I will address that. And what I want to say is this: esoterica is aimed. The content here is aimed at an upper level undergraduate level, which is just to say that, but if you're watching esoterica, the default assumption on my part when I'm writing episodes is that you already have some religious studies and some philosophy already in your belt. Like, so it's some level writing as if you are in uh, junior or a senior in undergraduate, and that you already have some basic understanding of religious studies and or philosophy or whatever. Now, on the one hand, that can myth people. It can rustle their jimmies because it's introductory. It's not really introductory. It's actually a little higher level than introductory, but it's also not graduate school stuff. We're not going to be going into the Coptic grammar, or we're not going to be going into stuff like that. Really complex, really stuff that you would do at the graduate level. And I guess what I want to say is I'm kind of unapologetic. There's tons of just introductory level stuff on the internet. You can go read Wikipedia articles. There's more introductory level stuff on other channels. I don't want esoterica to be that introductory. It assumes, for instance, that's why you don't see any episodes on esoterica about what is Gnosticism, because the basic idea here is that by the time you're watching an episode on Thunder Perfect Mind or on Cathar scriptures or on the Apocryphon of John, you need to already have some understanding of what Gnosticism is. You have to have done that work on your own. And so, because esoterica is a little bit higher level, and not super high level, but a little bit higher level, that's where the channel's dialed into. And I'm not going to really apologize for that. Uh, there's a ton of introductory material out there. It's a ton of introductory material and really good introductory material. But that's not what this channel is about. It's about introducing you to a higher level niche subfield in philosophy and religious studies that is, broadly speaking, esotericism. So if you don't like that, then you may want to go to more introductory material. And if my material is too beginner for you, fine. Trust me, go to graduate school, or go to take graduate level texts. There's tons of material there. And a lot of the material that I recommend in the episodes, I'm very clear that, look, this is a specialist text. If you really want to dive deep into whatever, here's a specialist text that goes into it at a very, very deep academic level. So that's basically the idea. So, yeah, I'm not going to apologize for it being a little too advanced. In fact, it's pretty intermediate, all things told, but that's where we want to dial in. That's where I want to dial things in at. So super chat donation. Did I miss it? Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Unswung Pendulum. That's a cool name. Thank you. 25 pounds. Thank you very much. It's very, very kind of you. Um, all right, let me jump up and grab some more questions, folks. I hope that makes sense. That again, I hope that makes sense that I'm not Esoterica is really not about making introductory level religious studies and philosophy material. And again, I'm not going to make an introductory level thing on Kant or Descartes. I'm going to say this is a very weird thing in Descartes' philosophy. It already has some background in Descartes. That's the idea. Yeah, we will actually talk about that. What are your thoughts on anti-cosmic Satanism? That sounds like a Lovecraft religion. I don't have any thoughts about that. I don't know anything about that. I don't have any thoughts about that. I don't know anything about it. So I'm sorry, Ian Gonzalez. I don't know much about. I don't know much about that. Um, let's see. I've heard that alchemical and occult symbols are derived from magic squares. Some of them are. Can you verify this is true and how they're produced and used? Yes. So alchemical symbols, not so much. Alchemical symbols are not typically derived from magic squares. I think what you have in mind here are certain sigils that are actually derived from the magic squares found in Agrippa. So in Agrippa's books on occult philosophy, which are somewhere back there. Oh yeah, there they are. Yep. It's the new Eric Purdue translation, which is amazing. So what you have are these magic squares, right? And those numbers, what you can do basically is take angelic names and then trace them out from following the numbers with the little ringlets at the ends, and those become these sigils or signatures for various angels, planetary spirits, and things like that. You can kind of do it with anything. So in that way, yes, there are a subset of magical symbols derived from magic squares, principally found in Agrippa. Uh, and there's been lots of updated versions of that stuff that have come since then. So, yeah. So that's yes. The short answer is yes. Some subset of them are, and they're principally derived from techniques found originally in Agrippa. Although I'm sure that new techniques have been developed since then. Um, um, Have I ever thought about getting a show on Gaia TV? No. Gaia TV is full of all kinds of terrible, rubbish, pseudoscience, nonsense, conspiracy theories, and trash. No, I would not want to be associated with them. And unfortunately, I think that they probably have ads on my channel. I don't get to control the ads on my channel, so always apologies for the ads. But no, I would not want to work with Gaia TV. Would not want to work with Gaia TV. Sorry, Gaia TV people. My desiccated sense of humor. Yeah, I like my humor like I like my mummies. Um, do I have any content on runes? I don't actually. And the reason why I don't have any content on runes is pretty simple. The reason why I haven't made anything about runes is because Dr. Jackson Crawford has made really great content about runes and their relationship to magic, Seether, and other kinds of things like that. So and Dr. Crawford has obviously a great deal of expertise in all things Norse. And so I often figured that if someone has done something well and has done something rigorous and done something very respectably, scholarly, like Dr. Crawford has, there's no reason for me to reproduce it. So what I would say is if you're interested in runic magic, things like bind runes and other runic staves and things like that, you can check out Dr. Crawford's content on runes. He has a great perspective on it, and from everything I've read about Norse magic, he seems to be on the money about it. I think that there are some folks who disagree with him mostly because they want to do a little bit more on the reconstruction side of things. But in my opinion, most of what I've read, uh, everything I've read points to I land very similar to where Dr. Crawford, and most of that is we don't know. We just don't know how a lot of this stuff was used, and a lot of the reconstruction that goes on is basically speculation. Now, there's nothing wrong with speculation, but it needs to be named as such, right? We shouldn't confuse speculation uh, with verified true belief. And one of the things I respect about Dr. Crawford and I respect about all academics when they do their job right, and he does his job very well, is saying we don't know. the historical record is ambiguous, the historical record is vague, and we often just don't know what a lot of this stuff means. So I would say that if you're interested in rune magic and Norse magic in general, Dr. Jackson Crawford on his channel has done fantastic work, and I'd recommend it highly. I watch his channel. I love his content. All right. I like the debate about whether it was actually a tanuki in the things. I have no idea what tanukis are. Frater Zygmunt asks, I keep coming across the god name Iota Alpha Omega lately in my readings. Can you tell me more of this name? Yeah. So Iota Alpha Omega is a Greek transcription of the Hebrew tetragrammaton. It seems that the tetragrammaton is just the 4-letter name for the Israelite god Yahweh. Now, you might be wondering, why is it a 3-letter name in Greek and a 4-letter name in Hebrew? The short answer seems to be that at some point in antiquity, late antiquity, that Yahweh could also be referred to as Yahoo, which is a great name, Yahoo. My God is Yahoo. It sounds like a fun god that way, less with the drowning people part. Sacrificing your son. So at any rate, this god Yahoo, and you can see this in the Sefer Yetzirah as well, that the god would refer to as a 3-letter name, and what you get is that 3-letter name from Hebrew transcribed into Greek letters the best you can into Greek letters, and so Iota Alpha Omega is a pretty close approximation of the 3-letter name for the Israelite god found in some late classical Jewish mystical texts. So it's just the name of the Israelite god. It's the name of the Israelite god. You typically see it in like Gnostic stuff. So that's the thing. Simon asks, is it possible to put together a children's coloring book of an amalgamation of your knowledge? That would be great. There's actually a friend of mine, my friend Ted Hand. I think he's putting together what is probably the most realistic alchemy text that's ever been produced in modernity, and that is an alchemy coloring book. You guys may not know this, but many alchemy books that were printed at the beginning of the 17th century were meant to be colored in, and there were very strict rules for what colors got applied to what things. And there's a ton of alchemical symbolism, as I'm sure all you know, that go along with various colors. And many books that we have from this time period would have been colored in. They would have been brightly colored with yellows and purples and reds and blues and greens. And my friend Ted Hand, who's I've known since like LiveJournal days, he's actually making, I think he's making or has made an alchemical coloring book. You can maybe look him up on Twitter. I think he's on Twitter. I think I don't have Twitter, so I don't know that world, the jungle that is Twitter. But he's producing an alchemical coloring book, and alchemical coloring books are absolutely the most authentic thing that you could make. So I don't know if I'm going to make a coloring book of the Monas Hieroglyphica or the 3 books of occult philosophy, but I absolutely do think making alchemical coloring books is completely historically accurate. And so, Ted, I don't know if you're watching this or if you watch it later, but people should buy your alchemical coloring book because I think adult coloring books are all the rave right now. I think that's true. I know lots of people who really like adult coloring books, and so there's no reason why there shouldn't be an alchemical coloring book based on 17th, 18th century alchemical texts, real ones, because they were all meant to be colored in when they were made. So yeah, I can't say about all the things, but I can say that absolutely that an alchemical coloring book is the most completely accurate thing that one could be making. Christos, we keep mentioning Platonist influence on Western esotericism. Do you think Stoicism played a similar role? You've been here for 2 years. Thank you, brother. Thank you for the congratulations. The short answer is kinda. And then I say kinda because Neoplatonism really becomes sort of first violin in the symphony of Western esotericism. And I think that a just as important second violin in many ways is Middle Platonism. And Middle Platonism is obviously before Neoplatonism, I guess, obviously. And Middle Platonism is the Platonism that actually combines a great deal of Platonic ideas with Jewish ideas, with Gnostic ideas, and with Stoic ideas. And so a great deal of the metaphysics at work in Middle Platonism is actually Stoic metaphysics. And in that way, yes, Stoic metaphysics, Stoicism has had an enormous impact on Western esotericism, primarily in things like the Hermetica. Remember that the Corpus Hermeticum was written prior to the development, in many ways, of Neoplatonism. A lot of these texts were written before Neoplatonism. Gnosticism developed before Neoplatonism. And so a great deal of those kinds of ideas are more coming from the Middle Platonic world, which has a heavy adjunct of Stoicism, much more so than obviously much more so than Neoplatonism because it didn't exist yet. So I think that if we want to look for the influences of things like the Hermetica, of things like Gnosticism, of things like the alchemy of people like Zosimus or Cleopatra of Alexandria, whatever. That stuff is actually coming out of Middle Platonism, which has a very heavy adjunct of Stoicism. Um, so there's that. Also, I should say this. This is obviously super important, and I don't know why I didn't say it. Think about it now. Um, Obviously, another really big part of Western esotericism is allegorization. I don't know what the right word is. Allegorization, which is to say that um, if you have a religious text in front of you, whatever that religious text is, there's a surface reading of that text, right? Whatever the surface reading of that text is. But the idea of allegorization is that beneath that surface layer, there is a deeper um, allegorical layer that holds the true meaning of the text. And that true meaning of the text is the idea that beneath all of that, beneath the plain reading, there's a hidden secret meaning. And the secret meaning is actually the more authentic meaning. That's a Stoic idea. So, as you folks may know, one of the big debates in, for instance, Plato was what to do with the Greek hymns, the Greek hymns. And the problem with the Greek hymns, according to Plato, was they were full of all kinds of bad stuff that the gods literally wouldn't do. They were full of lying and cheating and sexual assault and all kinds of stuff. And Plato looked at those and thought gods would never do this stuff. Now, Plato's answer in the Republic, as I'm sure most people know, was to edit them. He just would censor them. And what you would get is you would get a censored version of in the Republic, at least in the Polis, the Callipolis, he calls it. In the Callipolis, you get a censored version of Hesiod. And so Plato's answer was just censorship, totalitarian censorship. What the Stoics argued was that no, we shouldn't censor them. Rather, what's actually going on is there's a deeper meaning to these texts. These hymns are actually describing deeper fundamental truths, and the surface reading is not the true reading. And the Stoics pioneered this. They're not the first to do it. And in fact, we see a little bit of this happening with some earlier hymns, and the Orphic poets do this a little bit well. But the Stoics really popularized the idea that we can maintain the integrity of the religious hymns, but the task of reading them was no longer to read the plain reading, but to go underneath the plain reading and read this other allegorical, hidden, esoteric meaning. And the Stoics apparently really pioneered this during the Middle Platonic period. And obviously, there's just no Western esotericism without that shift, without that move, that you can't have a hermetic or a hermeneutics of the esoteric, because almost all forms of Western esotericism that are text based rely on the idea that beneath the plain reading of the Bible or of Hesiod or of whatever, beneath the plain reading, there is a deeper mystical hidden meaning. And really, the Stoics are in many ways crucial for that intellectual move, which again should be contradistinguished from Plato's move, which was censorship. Plato just said we should just remove those parts. So I think that's an interesting move. Censorship versus we maintain it, but we allegorize it. And that's Plato's move, or that's the Stoics' move. So, Christos, this is a really long answer to your question. But yes, the Stoics have played a really decisive, important role in esotericism that often goes missed because we put so much emphasis on Neoplatonism. And obviously, we should put a lot of emphasis on Neoplatonism, but I think Middle Platonism actually punches well above its weight, and Middle Platonism never gets discussed ever. It's really a shame, but I think it punches way above its way above its weight. So long answer, but I love that question. That's a great question. That's the kind of question I love live streams for, to really go into a thing like that. All right, let me scroll down and grab some more questions. Um, let's see. It's a borderline offensive term, but are there any bestiaries for angels, demons, and entities? Less from the interaction content perspective, more from the knowledge about perspective. Yeah, but there's lots of, at least now there are tons of books on angels and demons and these kind of bestiaries. Um, the I think bestiary is a great name for them. Um, if you want a really great book about that from the Hebrew Bible, there's a great book called Sacred Monsters that covers all of the rabbinical lore around all of the weird creatures that get mentioned in the Hebrew Bible that never get really fleshed out what they are. So, what is the behemoth, or what is all these creatures that really never get fleshed out. There's a great book called Sacred Monsters that I really like that covers that stuff. The Sefer Karnaim is the best sort of encyclopedia of Klipot, of like Kabbalistic demons. So the Sefer Karnaim, which I don't think is translated, unfortunately, was the best Klipot dictionary, but it's only in Hebrew, I think. Um, the best dictionary about angels is also not translated. It's called Malachi Elyon. It's by Reuven Margoliot. It's the best catalog of angels from the Talmud and the Zohar and Kabbalah. So it's called Malachi Elyon, um, by Margoliot, but it's not translated either, I don't think. You see the problem with this stuff, folks? People ask me like, "What can I do if I study Western esotericism?" I'm like, translate stuff. Just translate things. You could translate things for the rest of your life, and still there'd be stuff to do. So those are the things that jump to mind most immediately, or in terms of bestiaries and Kabbalah and angels and demons, stuff like that. So there's also tons of stuff about Egyptian deities. Um, what's this book that I have that I really like? There's an encyclopedia of monsters and demons from the ancient Near East that I have. The name of it is slipping my mind now, but you can find it pretty easily. Let me see if I can just see it from my shelf from here. I don't see it, but it's like an encyclopedia of all the gods and demons and stuff from the ancient Near East. And there's also a growing one from, I don't see it. There's also a growing one for Egyptian deities as well. I think that one of the online one of the online catalogs of Egyptian demons is now like there are over 500 demons. So there's tons and tons in the ancient Egyptian context. So but yeah, tons of those stuff. Um, have I ever looked into Finnish mythology, magic, or folklore? I haven't. I don't know much about Finnish mythology and folklore. I'd like to learn more about that. It seems really fascinating, um, especially because the Finnish folks are not Indo-European, so they bring a uh, whole different mythological substructure as opposed to the Semitic one or the Indo-European one. So that would be super fascinating. Also Hungarian too. I think the Hungarian mythologies are very rich and very different than Indo-European mythologies, because obviously they're not Indo-European. Um, feelings on Ibeschutz. Yeah, I mean Halperin's work on him Halperin's a great scholar. I will eventually get more into Shabbatai Tzvi and into the world of Shabbatianism and stuff like that. Um, Shabbatianism is unfortunately the domain at this point, and this is why I need to start covering it more. They're just gross anti-Semites all over the Shabbatian stuff, on YouTube. You cannot look up stuff on Shabbatai Tzvi on YouTube without finding just super disgusting anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. So a lot of that stuff needs to be corrected, and I'll do it eventually. But if you're watching content about Shabbatai Tzvi and it is not being grounded in good historical academic scholarship, there's a good chance that it's conspiratorial nonsense. Um, and one way, by the way, of checking whether a person actually knows what they're talking about when it comes to Shabbatai Tzvi content is ask them what Shabbatian works they've read. And if the answer is they've never read any works of Shabbatians, which there are, Nathan of Gaza wrote stuff, Shabbatai Tzvi wrote things, Nathan Frank wrote a big book, the Wars of the Lord. If they've not read actually any Shabbatian texts, you can just put them in the trash can. Just put them in the trash can. Um, The great example of this is the constant idea that you find repeated by anti-Semites that Shabbatites V believe that you got redemption through sin. I would challenge anyone to find that phrase in Hebrew anywhere in Shabbatites V's work, anywhere in Nathan of Gaza's work, in any of the letters written by Shabbatians. It doesn't occur because they didn't believe that. They just didn't believe it. Now they believed all kinds of other wackadoodle stuff. I'm not pro Shabbatian, but I'm saying what I will say is if you're going to represent Shabbatai and Shabbatites V and Shabbatianism, represent it honestly. Don't make up stuff. Reference their actual works and then represent their ideas faithfully. Because if you don't, you're just making up a bunch of crazy stuff about how the Rothschilds are secretly Shabbatians or the House of Saud is now Frankist or some crazy stuff like that. So one classic way of checking Shabbatian content is just ask the people making it, count how many times they actually quote a work by Nathan of Gaza, by Shabbatites V, by Nathan, by Frank, by whatever. And if you don't see it, you can throw it in the trash. You can throw it in the trash. So that's my. I will start doing some more Shabbatites V content, and you can see my Shabbatites V episodes on my my long 14 long part series on introduction to the Kabbalah. So you can check that out. All right. I've not done anything on Roger Bacon, but I need to. Will I do stuff on the mystery schools, Greece, Egypt, Chaldea, Persia? I don't think there are mystery schools that I know of in Persia, but yeah, I'll probably do. We'll certainly get to stuff on the mystery religions of ancient Greece. I've kind of touched on them with the Dervini papyrus, with the Orphism. So I'll certainly switch back to that. About that later. Julia McDonald, is there any way to approach psychedelics in a respectful, ritual manner that isn't just tripping? Absolutely. I think I say this on my my FAQ on my website that that spiritual experiences had under the influence of psychedelic drugs are just as important as any other spiritual experiences. So I'm very pro the use of psychedelic drugs in a responsible, curated, and respectful environment. And I've used psychedelic drugs myself. I don't mind saying it publicly. I think that we need to get over this anti-psychedelic bias in our culture. I think that it's a stupid bias. I think that it is actually not just stupid. It's spiritually regressive. It's intellectually regressive. Many really high functioning intellectuals have used psychedelic drugs, and it has greatly benefited their intellectual development. Many high functioning religious people have used psychedelic drugs, and it has greatly benefited their religious development. We have to deracinate this anti-psychedelic bias in our culture, and that means, I think, for me, a real push to ending drug prohibition and rerouting drug legislation completely away from law enforcement, and insofar as it is a mental health or a public health concern, it needs to be addressed that way. And criminalizing these substances is it's pathologically socially idiotic, and it has done nothing but hurt people in many ways, and mostly hurt people of color. And it's just a crappy way of doing this stuff. So yes, I'm all about the use of psychedelic drugs as a way of improving one's intellect and improving one's spirituality. And I think there are absolutely respectful, powerful ways of doing that that need to be explored. And we need to have institutions, and we need to have safe places, safe ways to use these substances in the ways that benefit people. So, um, yeah, psychedelic drug prohibition is stupid. Drug prohibition is probably very stupid, I think. All right, let me scroll down. Yeah, thank you, Silent Mandible, for your donation. Yeah, yeah. And it's still bad, folks. I mean, it's the anti-psychedelic bias in the academy is still there. It's so stupid. If you admit publicly that you if you've done psychedelic drugs, you get blacklisted and people look at you like you're a crazy person or something. I'm like, I mean, academia is full of drunks. Like anyone blackball on that, like coke, serious caffeine addicts. I'm like, look, like we can admit that caffeine and alcohol have had very powerful and very negative impacts on academia. We should have a lot more to say about psychedelic drugs. Stupid. All right. Let me scroll back up and wow, there's so many great questions. Professor Hamamoto, thank you for your donation. Um, Esotericism should be an integral component in the introduction. I don't know if it should be in the introduction to humanities, honestly. I don't know if I would introduce it there. I think that it should just be part of the religious studies curriculum. Um, in the same way that you get an exoteric study of the Bible, there should be a class on biblical esotericism. Just like you get, I think that it should just be part of the curriculum. Um, and so I don't even like the idea that you would have a class on mysticism, as if mysticism should be sort of ghettoed into its own mysticism quarantine, and you would take a class on mysticism. I just feel like it should be part and parcel of how we learn about medieval thought. It should be part and parcel of how we learn about Renaissance thought, as much as anyone learns about Renaissance thought in undergraduate. Uh, so I think that it should just be integrated. Now the problem with integrating it is that you have to know about it, and most people don't. Most academics don't know anything about any of this stuff hardly. And so when I think about ancient religion, when I teach if I were to teach a class on ancient religion, I wouldn't want there to be a separate class on Gnosticism when we spend all of our time talking about whatever. Like, nope, it's just part of the field of ancient religiosity. So I find that it's just a pity that it just doesn't get integrated into the just the standard way we tell the story, because it's part of the story. And if you leave part of the story out, you're not telling the story. That's my beef. Tell the damn story, folks. Tell the damn story. That's all I want. All right. Let me scroll back up. What do you think about semen retention and its connection to spirituality? I do think it's part of Hindu spirituality. Um, I don't know much about it other than that. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I've never studied the physiological side effects of semen retention, things like that. I think it is something that's practiced in like maybe Tantra and Eastern spirituality, but I don't know much about that. I mean, I guess technically, uh, Orthodox Judaism and Catholicism practice it because they're masturbations. I mean, at least the Catholics, you can't you can't the priest can't get married, and they can't masturbate because that's a sin. So I guess they're doing it. I don't know. I don't know much about it. Um, I don't know much about it. Um, what do I think about Terence McKenna? He was a genius who went off the deep end. His like time code stuff, I think was kind of crazy, but yeah, it's one of these geniuses that crosses over into kind of a kind of madness. Yeah, um, but yeah, he's interesting in that regards for sure. Um, Desideratum is a great name. Would you consider Patreon supported trips to important historical sites to shoot documentary style videos? Yeah, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. You know that my partner who is clergy, she had sabbatical. She has sabbatical this semester, and we were supposed to go to Palestine, Israel to spend the entire time there, and that just didn't work out for COVID and lots of things. And I really wanted to do some sort of on the ground stuff on Tel Arad or other sites in Palestine, Israel. But yeah, I'd love to do that. I don't know anything about shooting documentary stuff. It's the kind of thing that Philip Holm over at Let's Talk Religion knows a lot more about than I do. But yeah, I would really, really dig doing some more documentary style stuff, like just on the ground. I thought about doing that when I was in Mayab in the Maya country. But sometimes you got to let vacation be vacation. There's always a temptation to want to work during vacation, or at least there is for me. And I was like, yeah, should I not? And I decided ultimately not to. But yeah, I'd love to do some more documentary style on location stuff. But the truth of the matter is, I think I need to take some classes or do some tutorials about how to like shoot stuff, because I don't know anything about filming things. Like I literally don't move my camera when I do esoteric episodes because I'm so scared that I'll mess something up. Like the settings on my camera could be written in Mandarin Chinese and I would understand them just as well. So I have to be like I'm a little gun shy when it comes to filming, just because I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything cinematography or how to frame a shot, or I'm not Darren Aronofsky or whatever. Although I'd like to be Darren Aronofsky and I'd like to meet that guy. But yeah, I'd like to do that, but I just got to learn more about how to shoot stuff. Which that's just a I need to take a class or something. Um, Thank you for your donation, Frater Zygmunt. Um, I need to get Frater in front of my name. I think I have to join an esoteric order before I become a Frater. Um, but I need to do that. Speaking of esoteric orders, um, this is where I get to admit that I get to admit that I haven't done my homework. I'm reading the Kaczynski biography of Aleister Crowley, Per, and it is fantastic. I really like Kaczynski's writing style. Rich Kaczynski's writing style was just wonderful to read. And he's also a fellow Detroiter. I think he used to work at Wayne State, where I teach at. And he's just the Per biography is just fantastic reading. And I just got finished reading all the drama with the Golden Dawn in the late 19th century. And it makes me really glad that I am not part of one of these mystical orders that has all kinds of mystical drama. Because that mystical drama gets like, they curse you and stuff, hex you, like make random fires appear. I don't want to have to deal with that because I can't curse them back. I don't have to do that. So I don't know what to do. But yeah. Ah, Jose Miguel Bueno Guerrera. Why is Cohelet your favorite book from the Bible, from Tanakh? Why is Cohelet my favorite? Because I am a pessimist. um, I'm a pessimist of a certain kind. I'm a metaphysical pessimist. I'm actually an optimist in every other regard. I just so happen to believe that it would be better if nothing existed. And so what I like about Cohelet is the brutal honesty of Cohelet. Cohelet is not painting Pollyanishly. He's not painting some story where God's going to fix everything. He's not painting a story where getting wise is inherently good. The more books, the more weariness, I think he says. Um, Kohelet is, for me, telling it as it is. And he's telling it as it is as a person who went through it. He's like, yeah, I had sex with a bunch of women. And at the end of the day, nothing came of it. Yeah, I learned a bunch of stuff. And at the day, I'll be worm food. Who knows if my soul is going to go to the afterlife? Who knows if my soul is different than a dog's soul? Maybe they all go to the same place. The the Weltschmerz, the world weariness, the truth, I mean, Kohelet had the 1,000-yard stare into being, and he told the truth. And there's a tendency among religious people not to tell the truth, to make up some story about how it's all going to work out in the end, how everything's okay, God's in control of everything. And Kohelet is white knuckled grip on reality, says, maybe, maybe it will be, and maybe it won't. And maybe this is all meaningless, right? Hevel Hevelim, Kol Hevel. Everything is meaningless. Nothing new under the sun. And that kind of white knuckled grip on reality and that extreme form of truth telling that isn't painting things with a super negative brush, but also not giving you any kind of false hope. I find that to be a religion I can get with. This is not God will wipe away every tear and we're going to live in a heaven with a crystal sea or whatever you find in Revelations. This is not the Messiah is going to come and fix everything that you find in rabbinical Judaism. This is a kind of exhausted, uh, sitting by the fire. You had a little bit too much whiskey and you're just telling it. And I think that about Kohelet rings true to me. It's a text that I resonate deeply with. I read every year. I study it every year. And I really appreciate that kind of truth telling. Now, is Kohelet right? I don't know if he's right. Right? I don't know if he's right. In fact, he would not want whoever wrote Kohelet would not want me lavishly grabbing onto him as some dogmatic Koheletite. But I appreciate the 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 tenacity with which they tell the truth, and I appreciate the fact that also this book almost didn't make it into the Bible. Folks may know this, right? That there are two books in the Hebrew Bible that almost were kicked out, and those two books are Kohelet and Esther. Esther almost didn't make it in because it never mentions God, and they didn't like that, and so Esther was almost thrown out. Also, in fact, Martin Luther hated Esther too, but he hated it for anti-Semitic reasons. Cohelet made the rabbis so uncomfortable that if you go to a Jewish Bible and you open Cohelet and go to the end of it, they added 3 lines to the end of Cohelet, basically saying, yes, this is all true and God's going to make everything work out. And those lines had to be repeated 3 times, which aren't repeated 3 times in the original text, but they have to repeat them because when you read Cohelet, you can come away with it feeling so dejected, I guess, or whatever, that you have to know that God's in control. And to me, they were able to slide Cohelet into the canon in a way that betrayed it. And I never read those lines, right? I never read those lines. When I read Cohelet, I never read those lines because for me, it's a spiritual betrayal of Cohelet. And so they did allow it in. It is there, obviously, but it only got in by the skin of its teeth, and only because they kind of doctored it to make it kind of end in a more, I think, theologically Pollyannish note. So that's why I like Cohelet. Cohelet is a badass book. It's the most based book of the Bible, y'all. Cohelet is based because it is like the truth tellingest of all books in the Bible, in my opinion. So that's my great joy of Cohelet. I love Cohelet. All right, let me jump back down and see some more questions. Thank you, Mr. Sardonicus. Yeah, nice crawler shirt. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm not in my normal uniform, right, with a suit and tie and stuff. Yeah, it's today's Crawless Day. I think yesterday was probably like Abigail Williams Day or Wolves in the Throne Room Day. It's whatever, like a random black metal shirt I happened to pull out. So yeah, I like Yellow Eyes. Crawless puts out albums crazy, man, crazy fast. By the time that I have to listen to a Crawless album, they already have 3 more out. So yeah, it's been great to I love Crawless. It's great. It's like, let's just change time signatures every 5 seconds. Let's do that. That's fun. All right. Is it worth learning biblical Hebrew or modern Hebrew for academic studies? Yes, biblical Hebrew for sure. Yeah, learning classical Hebrew if you want to do if you're going to do some esotericism, especially having some grasp on biblical Hebrew is not a bad idea. But I always tell people, do your best to get Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. If you're going to study esotericism, do your best to get Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. Those are going to pay you good dividends. So I absolutely have, would highly recommend doing, getting Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. All right, let me keep scrolling down. I'm going to do show and tell in a minute. Show and tell sounds so silly. That's the point, though. It's supposed to sound silly. 2020 website. Is there a good book that focuses specifically on the apocalyptic messages John Dee got from his sessions? Yes. Deborah Harkness's book focuses extensively on John Dee as an apocalyptic, as part of the sort of general 17th and 16th century apocalypticism. Look up Deborah Harkness's book, which I think it's just called Conversations with Angels. I think it's right there. Yeah, her text deals with it at length. So yeah, I would look up Deborah Harkness's book. She's great. She's great. Oh, Jonna Jones, thank you so much for. You have a cool samurai person. What are these samurai tanuki things? This is great, but thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much for your donation. All right. Wow, there's a bunch of questions. Let me see if I can do some rapid fire question answering, which I can't. And then I'll do some show and tell. Will I write a book so that y'all can purchase it? Yeah, at some point. I don't know what I'd write a book about. I have like 5 book ideas in my mind. I just about need to sit down and maybe write them. One book I would love to make, and I don't know if you guys know any publishers, but if you know any publishers, especially maybe the folks that hack it, reach out to them. I really want to make a Western esotericism reader. There's no good Western esotericism reader, really. I'd love to make sort of an intro, 400-page introduction to Western esotericism reader. That's a thing I really want to do. So if you If you know any publishers that want to help me do that, let me know. But yeah, one of the things I'd love to do is I'd love to make a I'd love to curate a Western esotericism reader. So that's an idea I have. Um, of all the religions that emerged in the Roman period that didn't survive, which one would I wish survived? Um, I maybe Mithraism. I think Mithraism is really interesting. Um, yeah, I think Mithraism is one that I think would have been interesting had it survived. I kind of wish there was just more religious diversity. I really one of the things I like about the period of the second century or something is the extreme religious diversity that existed. I also like the idea there was just a bunch of people who really weren't that religious in the sense that they didn't their their philosophical outlook wasn't tied to a cult. I really like that there were Stoics and Epicureans and Platonists, and they were kind of quasi-religious people. I kind of wish that would have survived, as opposed to like you have to be in a camp. I find that to be, which is I think did happen somewhat in India, but I wish that would have happened. Um, I wish that would have happened. So all right. How can you talk about alchemy but not know anything about semen retention? Because it has nothing to do with alchemy. Show me a single text in the history of alchemy that talks about that. Um, yeah, it's definitely not. Yeah, show me in the Summa Perfectionis where they go on about that. I'm pretty sure that's an incorrect analysis of what alchemy is. Uh, Alchemy is so badly misunderstood by people. It's as if people talk about alchemy and have never read an actual alchemical book from the Middle Ages. Um, The language of the birds. Yeah, the Vogelsprache. Yeah, this is an idea. The language of the birds is a thing that you see over and over again in the history of Western esotericism. I think of it primarily in the Hasidic context, where some of the Hasidic rabbis could speak to birds. They understood the Vogelsprache. Yeah, it's a thing that exists. I've heard about it in various little locations and things like that. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Um, is Irenaeus a person one should read if you wanted a background for Bataille's Gnosticism? Um, Probably. I mean, he would have been Bataille would have only had access to Irenaeus and Hippolytus. Hippolytus? I don't know. Yeah, that and gems, the gems. And mostly I think he's relying on the gems more than anything else. But Bataille's notion of Gnosticism isn't really connected to historical Gnosticism. It's interesting he mentions it, but he doesn't really understand anything about Gnosticism really, or very little. So it's interesting, but it's very disconnected from the historical reality of Gnosticism. As much as I love Bataille, but that's just that's just the truth of the matter. Let me scroll down. Um, yep, KT Cohelet is Ecclesiastes. That's right. It's funny because gets named Ecclesiastes, which means preacher, and obviously Cohelet is not a preacher. It's the worst name translation. Cohelet just means the gatherer. From like the word kahal means gathered together. Cohelet just means one who gathers. Probably one who gathers wisdom actually. So it's weird. It's interesting that the he's not. Yeah, it gets called Ecclesiastes, but it's the worst name for that text. That's why I just don't like using the name Ecclesiastes. I just rather just use the Hebrew term Kohelet, which is far better and much more much. It's actually clear as to what he is, as opposed to Ecclesiastes. Terrible translation. Um, all right. Yeah, I like Kohelet. Hermes Trismegistus. Wow, we got Hermes Trismegistus in the chat. What is truly the most accurate version of the Bible to read? I guess what it means, what accurate. My I always tell people that the most accurate Bibles are the ones that tell you when they don't know what things mean. So I always tell people this: if you want to check the metal of a translation of the Bible, open it to the book of Job. Open it to the book of Job, And if on basically every page of the translation you have for the Bible on the book of Job, if it doesn't say over and over again at the bottom, meaning of Hebrew uncertain, meaning of the word is vague, this sentence is incomprehensible, we don't know what this word means. If they don't have that on basically every page of the book of Job, you have a bad translation. And if you at least have a translation where they're lying to you, because what they're doing is telling you they know what this text means. The truth of the matter is we don't know a ton of words in Job. Job has vocabulary that is extraordinarily weird. And the only one of the only translations, or one of the best translations, in my opinion, that really is honest about the fact that we don't know a lot about Job is a very weird book, is the NOAB. I Anytime I'm going to the Bible, I'm going to the NOAB, the New Oxford Annotated Bible. I really like the NOAB. It's a great translation, and it has great notes, and it will do things like correct the Masoretic text based on the Dead Sea Scrolls. So, as folks know, may know, there's a psalm where it's an acrostic psalm where every line begins with a letter of the Hebrew alphabet, so Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, whatever. Well, it's missing the letter Nun. The Nun line is missing, and there's a whole long rabbinic stories about why this line is missing, why the Nun line is missing. And what we have actually, when we discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls, is we found psalm rolls, and turns out the Nun line is there. The Nun line is there. And the NOAB says, let's restore it. We have the Nun line. We found it. It was lost from the manuscript for whatever reason. It wasn't in the Aleppo Codex or whatever. And we lost it. And now we have it again. And there's no reason to believe that the Dead Sea Scroll people just made it up. It seems to match the acrostic. It matches everything else. And there it is. And so they restore it. So in other places where the Masoretic text is spurious and the Dead Sea Scrolls are a better read, they will correct the Masoretic text using the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they'll tell you in the footnote they did that, right? They're not going to just do it and not tell you. They'll tell you. But the NOAB, the New Oxford Annotated Bible, is my go-to Bible. I love the translation. It's great. It's not terribly poetic, but I'm not going to the Bible always for poetry. If I want a poetic Bible, I'll go to the King James Bible. That's the most poetic Bible ever made. So if I want something that's poetic, but the translation's not always reliable, great. I'll use the King James for poetry. But you know, again, if I want to hear Psalm 23 read, I'm not going to read NOAB. I'm going to use the King James. It's far more beautiful. So again, it all accuracy in the Bible or accuracy in any text that's been translated is all about what you want in terms of accuracy. If linguistic accuracy is what you want, I'm a big fan of the NOAB. That's my opinion. People get real upset about that stuff. Of course, the best thing is just learn to read Hebrew, but that may be asking too much sometimes. Maybe asking too much. Favorite Ennead, the Ennead on beauty. I know it's a cop out, but whatever. There's a reason why Ennead 6 is a reproducer. It's the best. Ennead 6 is the best. I do also like the Ennead when he goes off on the Gnostics. I'll be covering that at some point in the future. For some reason, people think that like the Christians and the pagans were like all on the same team, and like it was the Christians versus the pagans and the pagans versus the Christians. But there's a lot of like inter-Christian beef, and there's a lot of intra-pagan beef. Um, the 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 Neoplatonists did not like the Gnostics, and there's an interesting kind of like idea that there was team pagan and team Christian or whatever. That's not accurate at all. That's not how it went down. But yeah, I like Ennead 6. Of course, I know everyone's supposed to say you're supposed to like Ennead 6, but there's a reason why it gets reproduced all the time, because it is awesome. It is awesome. Um, Jason Kane, I'm brand new to the channel. Do you believe that demonic entities actually exist, and have you ever had encounter with demonic possession? I do not think demonic entities actually exist. No, no. Now, have I had encountered demonic possession? Yes, I've met many people who've claimed to be demonically possessed. Uh, but no, I've not. I'm not. Not. I don't believe in demons as distinct entities. Does the NOB contain the Apocrypha? Yes. Yeah, you can buy a copy of the NOB that does have the Apocrypha. Do I have my copy nearby somewhere? I have like 4 copies of it. Yeah, you can buy the college student study edition of the best. You can get it with the Apocrypha. Um, so yeah, it's great. All right. let's see here. Are you at all interested in Arabic alchemy? Yes, definitely interested in Arabic alchemy. Yep, Becoming Gold's a great book. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in Arabic alchemy because there just isn't any alchemy without Arab. I mean, without Islamic alchemy, there just isn't any European alchemy. And so, anyone who's interested in alchemy who says they're disinterested in Arabic alchemy is an idiot, because there's just no European alchemy without it. The problem, of course, is just there's not a lot of translations. Of a lot of those texts. They are slowly getting translated, but there just aren't a lot of translations, and I don't read Arabic. Um, or I read Arabic very badly, I guess, and so I certainly couldn't read that stuff. But nope, there is um, yep, I'm absolutely interested in it. It's great. All right, let's do some show and tell. How about that? We're an hour and 25 minutes in. Let me do some show and tell real fast. Speaking of alchemy, one of my favorite things that I have in my collection of things is are these. And I think I may have shown these off on the channel, and you can probably see them in the background of my of a lot of the videos. So this, folks, is what is called a Hessian crucible. Hessian crucibles are a unique kind of crucible made in the region of Germany, but they're interesting because they contain a very high level of aluminum silicate. The soil from that region has a very high level of aluminum silicate. In fact, you can even see in the upper areas the sort of shiny part of the crucible that contains that aluminum silicate. Now, what makes these really impressive is that aluminum silicate is incredibly resistant to heat. So you can get these things up to incredibly high temperatures without them cracking. And what's really cool about Hessian crucibles is they've done chemical analysis of these. And what's equally neat about them is that if you were to find them, buy them back in the day as part of your alchemical practice, is you would buy them in this nested form. So you would get a set of them, right? So this is the biggest one, right? So you can see inside of this Hessian crucible. These date to the 17th century. So these are probably real alchemical. These are real alchemical crucibles that were. This one actually was unused. But if you take the next big one up, right? So we keep unpacking them like Russian dolls. You can see that this one has been used. Right? This one's been used. It's been fired. I probably should not be touching these things with my bare hand. God knows they have mercury and who knows what else in them. Um, but you can see in here, right, this one has been used, and you begin to scale down to the next littlest one and the next littlest one. Right. So you can see, right? Yeah, they're like alchemical Russian dolls. So these are an example of Hessian crucibles, and you can see even on. I haven't put this one in close enough. Will it get focus? No, it won't. But you can see even here on this smallest one, when these got fired, you can still see the same. You can still see the same way, or the same pattern of the firing on them. See a little red area? That's probably cinnabar or something like cinnabar. And the upper area is the aluminum, where the aluminum silicate has precipitated up. So one of the really cool things about again Hessian crucibles is that one of the big problems in alchemical procedures, and just assaying in general back in the world of doing alchemy, is that getting something up getting high heat. You need really high heat to do things like melting gold and melting silver. And one of the problems, of course, is that before the development of modern crucibles, ceramic crucibles, is that any crucible you get up that hot would crack. It would break, and you would lose whatever gold and silver you had into the slag. And so, what's really fascinating about these, and we only understood how they worked, and just recently when chemical analysis was done on them, is that aluminum silicate forms an incredibly powerful heat resistance. So you can heat these things up many more times than you can heat up a normal crucible. And you can see pictures of these all through alchemical iconography. If you just look up a picture of an alchemist, I mean, see if I can actually just find one really fast. Um, um, The classical picture. I'll put one in the description if I can find one real fast. Like an actual picture from an alchemist lab. There's always like fanciful pictures of alchemy labs and not actual pictures of actual historical labs. Like labs from Harry Potter. Oh, come on. I should have pulled one up before I did the live stream, huh? Here we go. But if you look in this picture, you will see, let me put it in the chat. Folks want a picture there. If you pull that picture up, you will see there on the Alchemist lab, they're actually in the fire and other places throughout the lab. You'll see them all over. This is a pretty close approximation to what an Alchemist lab really would have looked like. And you will see these. So these are actual alchemical crucibles that were, at least this one, was used probably in historical alchemy in the 17th century, in the heyday of alchemy. So it's again neat stuff that one can find if you go looking in flea markets. And this one was gifted to me actually. You can go find these things, and they are incredibly fascinating that one can find real historical relics of alchemical devices. Unfortunately, a lot of the glass and stuff has broken and is lost. So a lot of the alchemical products have been lost. But luckily, this type of crucible, because of its extreme ability to resist heat, they've survived, and you can see them, and you can actually get them. You can get them. All right, folks, let me check the time. An hour and a half. Great. I'm going to go for about another half hour, and then I will close things off. Let's see here. Let me see some other questions as I'm yeah, the children in the background, typically those are often images of alchemists depict the alchemist working at their fire all the while everyone's growing poor, and the children are actually just being taken away. So alchemists were famously go broke doing their alchemy. So they're often depicted as tattered and things like that. They're often images would make fun of them. Yeah, actually, Sam, thank you for your donation. Yeah, I'm going to be doing an episode actually pretty soon on the what's called the Arab Hermetica, which would also include Persian Hermetica, which actually Middle Persian Hermetica actually predate the Arab Hermetica, which is unsurprising when you think about it. But I'll be looking at that at some point in the future. So yeah, be on the lookout. Be on the lookout soon um, for text on the Arab Hermetica, including Persian Hermetica. All right. Are dialectical materialism and esotericism as mutually exclusive as they might seem? I mean, esotericism just means you're sort of subterfuging things. But I mean, if you're asking like, are you asking if you can be a dialectical materialist and also be a hermeticist? I don't think those two worldviews line up. Like, I'm not a hermeticist. Like, I'm not a Gnostic. I'm not a practitioner, mostly because of my worldview. But do I think that one could be a materialist and also be a mystic? Yeah, of course. I can't imagine. I don't see any problem with being a materialist and also being a mystic. I think mysticism has to do with epistemology and stuff like that. So I'm not. I don't think there's anything inherently opposed to those. Lady Longsleeves, thank you so much for your support of the channel. You always leave such wonderful, kind comments. So thank you. I hope you have a great evening. All right, let me scroll back up and grab some more questions. So we start to wrap up the live stream for today. Do you think that Revelations, I guess you're saying the book of Revelations, the apocalypse of John, is a metaphor for the constant state of humanity, current history, or a time that passed, or a time to come? I think it's a metaphor for, it's a The Apocalypse of John is, in my opinion, the most Jewish book of the New Testament. um, when I read the book New Testament, most of that seems really weird to me, but the Apocalypse of John seems incredibly Jewish. And it's so Jewish because it's an example of apocalyptic literature that was very common at the time. And in apocalyptic literature, one of the things that makes apocalyptic literature apocalyptic is what is called ex eventu prophecy. And ex eventu prophecy is where you describe things that are going on in your current time as if they're going to happen in the future, and you encode them as if they're going to happen in the future. I'll say that again to make it not so confusing. Apocalyptic literature is marked by what is called ex eventu prophecy. And ex eventu prophecy is where you describe what's happening now in code as if it's happening, as if it's going to happen in the future. And there's no doubt that the Apocalypse of John is doing exactly that. The Apocalypse of John is describing the Neronian persecution. Now, it does include some stuff about the end of the world. There is some stuff toward the end where it does describe the ultimate end of the world, but most of the book is describing the Neronian persecution, not stuff to come. So there is no Antichrist, right? Because that term doesn't really even get used in that text. The beast, the beast 666, which is mostly 616 in all the early manuscripts, but it's almost certainly Nero. Almost certainly Nero. But yeah, I love the book of the Apocalypse of John. It's a great book. Um, yeah, some people hate it. I think Martin Luther hated it. He hated it, James, and Esther. He wanted to get rid of them. I think he called James an epistle of straw, which I don't know. I like. Martin Luther's nuts. I appreciate his nutsness. What are non-Nag Hammadi Gnostic important texts? Ian Gonzalez asks. The big texts that are important that are not Nag Hammadi would be the text in the Bruce Codex and then the Askew Codex. Also the Codex Mani, which would include some the little bit of Manichaean stuff we have. So I would say that the big text are the Bruce Codex and the Askew Codex. Those are going to contain the Book of Jude, the Pistis Sophia, things like that. And also there's the Gospel of Judas and stuff like that. Oh yeah, the Sakos Codex too. Sakos Codex, which has recently only been discovered. So that's important as well. So those are three texts that are Gnostic that are not Nag Hammadi. Non-Nag Hammadi Gnostic. There should be some acronym for that. What's your take on Giordano Bruno's De Magia? Good question, because I'm going to be making an episode about that pretty soon. So if you want to see my thoughts on De Magia, Giordano Bruno's theory of magic, I'll be making an episode on De Magia here pretty soon. I'll be doing an episode on that pretty soon. Hatham asks, when did you start delving into esotericism and philosophy? When I was in like early in high school, maybe late middle school. I think I started learning Latin like late middle school, started learning Hebrew late middle school, and I started reading. I think by 8th grade, 9th grade, I was already like checking out Aristotle and stuff from the library. I didn't understand any of it, but yeah, I was already trying to get into that stuff. Any view on second Enoch? There's an endless debate about how old it is. Some say 1st century AD, and that it was influenced by Christianity and Judaism. Others say it's a medieval creation. It's definitely not medieval. I would say that second Enoch is written in this late classical period. It's written sometime in the late classical period. So sometime 2nd, 3rd, 4th centuries. Yeah, it seems. Yeah, it's a Merkava text, so it's some late classical maybe. But yeah, I don't think it's medieval. That seems way late. I have a copy of the 1599 pre-King James Bible. Is it reliable? I guess it means by what you mean by reliable. I mean, it's not going to be reliable in terms of up to modern linguistic standards. No. So not in that way. Let's see. Is it possible that Plotinus was influenced by Christianity? It's very possible. I mean, I think Numenius, his teacher, may have been Christian adjacent. I mean, he's living in the world of Alexandria where there's certainly Christians. He could have been influenced. I think it's much more likely the influence went the other way. I don't see much of an influence of Christianity on Plotinus. I see a hell of a lot of influence of Plotinus on Christianity. So no, I think that if the If the influence went either way, it went Plotinus to Christianity, not the other way around. Do you have a preferred translation of the attribute given to the snake in Genesis? It goes cunning, evil, subtle. The word for the nachash is what is the word that describes them? Oh, come on, it's slipping my mind now. Um, it's a pun actually on the word for naked. Um, um, yeah, arum. I can't believe you do these live streams for an hour and 40 minutes and you forget your Hebrew. Arum. The snake is described as arum. It just means clever. It just means clever. And it's a pun, right? The text is funny, punny. It puns on arum, arumim, right? Arum means clever, and arumim means naked. And so the writer of that text is making a joke. I mean, this is a thing that gets lost on people who don't read the original Hebrew. Is that most of the beginning of Genesis is like a joke. It's full of puns and word plays and stuff like that. It's probably trying to be funny, and it is funny because the snake is cunning and the people are naked. So the snake is arum and the people are arumim. They're naked, and there's a homophonic pun there in the Hebrew. Hebrew loves puns and word plays and stuff like that. And so it's just a pun, and it doesn't mean evil for sure. It means clever, like wily. But there's no indication of like evil in the text. The whole idea the snake is the devil is really a later medieval thing, really a Christian thing. Um, so, all right. Scroll back up and get some more questions. Um, all right. What are your thoughts on the Gnostic belief that the God of the Abrahamic religions, Yaldabaoth, Samael, Saklas, is an evil demiurge? I mean, whatever God made this world has to be evil. It seems to me, or at least doesn't really like us very much. I think about this universe. This is like the Gnostic impulse I have. Like the Gnostics are probably right. I think that they're half right. I think they're right in the sense that the world is fundamentally bad, at least bad for us. I don't think they're right in the sense that there's any savior going to fix anything, and there's no way out. You just die, and that's it. Um, and I say that because I think when I look at nature as basically horrifying. Human beings can only live in a tiny, tiny little area. If you get anywhere outside of this tiny, tiny little area, you suffer and die horribly. So if you're in the ocean long enough, you suffer and die. You get in the desert, you suffer and die. Mountains, suffer and die. Um, Too hot, suffer and die. Too cold, suffer and die. And if you are anywhere in space that we know of, you don't suffer, but you certainly die. You just die very quickly. It seems like if you look at the vast preponderance of nature, it's just basically a giant machine to kill people. And so, if there was a deity that made this universe, they basically made a giant trap called the universe and put us on the tiniest speck in the middle of it, or whatever the middle is. So, yeah, I always like Gnosticism in the sense that I always think that, yeah, the Gnostics must be right, except for the fact that there's no way out. So, if there were any sort of like Thomas Ligotti Gnostics, I could get with Thomas Ligotti Gnosticism. But the whole part where like Christ comes and fixes stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's boring. But Gnosticism minus salvation is based. I'm about that. If you were to give me a Gnosticism minus salvation, I'd be about it. But yeah, I don't like the whole like, oh, and then Jesus came and Christ came and fixed everything, and now your spirit can be free. I'm like, that's boring. Let's be honest. Let's be a bit more white knuckled about it, and let's just be clear that the universe is maybe made by a very very malevolent being who basically put us into a giant into a gilded cage around a nightmare. So yeah, I like agnosticism for that, right? But the rest, I'm like, it's too Pollyannish for me. It's too Pollyannish for me. Um, the Gnostics weren't really willing to go far enough in their pessimism. Like I said, I want some Thomas Ligotti Gnosticism, not this other boring stuff. All right, let me scroll back up. Uh, let's see. Yeah, I'm all about the materialism. I'm hardcore about the materialism. Um, just because you think that there's just matter doesn't mean the matter's good. It can still be bad. I think it's mostly bad, at least for us. It's indifferent, at least. More of a Lovecraftian in that way. It's just, no, it's just absolutely indifferent to us. The sun doesn't really care about us at all, which I kind of love. I love the fact that the universe is utterly indifferent to us. If there were anything that conceived of us at all, that would be bad, probably. Um, the indifference of the universe gives me great comfort. The indifference of the universe gives me great comfort. All right, let me scroll up. What do I know about Lilith? I'll make a whole episode about Lilith. I'm gonna making a whole episode about her. So yes, Lilith is a really great piece of Jewish mythology that goes all the way back to Sumerian mythology. Really, Judaism really can't claim her at all. She sort of gets brought into Judaism way back from Sumerian times. So I will absolutely be covering Lilith mythology in the future. She's an awesome, interesting character. Um, could you give a couple of apocalyptic Jewish texts that are similar to the Apocalypse of John? Um, I mean, in many ways, if you want to if you want to pick up a great volume, you can get the 2 volume Old Testament pseudepigrapha. You kind of pick an apocalypse, any apocalypse. They're kind of very, in many ways, they're all kind of very similar in many ways to the Apocalypse of John. So, um, now Apocalypse of John is a very advanced form of apocalyptic literature because it's written so late. 100, it's written around 100 of the Common Era, so it's able to take advantage of centuries of apocalyptic literature that's already been written. But yeah, I mean, I think Enoch is very similar in many ways to the Apocalypse of John. So yeah, it's great. If you don't have the 2 volume Old Testament pseudepigrapha, it's really worth having. Um, it's it's um, it's really really worth having. Um, Dead Man Animations, just stopping by to show my appreciation. Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you so much for stopping by and saying, give me some thanks. And thank you for the donation. I appreciate that a great deal. Thank you so much. Um, I appreciate you so much. Let's see here. Um, Whatever happened to the Jewish temple in Alexandria? And what was it doing there? It was the Jewish temple. So folks may not know this. There were lots of other Jewish temples that weren't the one in Jerusalem. Not lots. There were a few. There was one in Alexandria that was built by, was it Onias the third, Onias the fourth, one of the Oniases. So it was built by Onias the third or Onias the fourth. I can't remember exactly. What was it doing there? It was probably serving as a, it was a renegade. I mean, Onias was basically expelled by the Hasmoneans, and so he just kind of packed his bags and went somewhere else and started his own temple. Of course, there's the other one down on Elephantine Island too that we actually have good records of, or some records of, that go way back to Persian period. What was going on there? Probably sacrifices and stuff. I would say it seems reasonable to me that they were probably doing sacrifices. We know that there were sacrifices happening at the Elephantine Island temple, um, because they tell us that there were. In fact, there was a riot, and the local Egyptian religious people destroyed the Yahweh temple. And then the local Jewish population who was garrisoned there, they were Jewish mercenaries hired by the Persian Empire. They were garrisoned at Elephantine Island. They sent a letter to Jerusalem to rebuild it, and the Jerusalem community said, "Yeah, you can rebuild it, and you can continue doing sacrifices. You just can't do any animal sacrifices anymore. So you can do grain, liquid, libation sacrifices, and incense sacrifices, but no more animals." So it seems that at least at the Elephantine Island temple, at that Yahweh shrine, they were doing animal sacrifices at least until they had to uh, to rebuild it. So yeah, there were lots of other Yahweh shrines. Tel Arad was a Yahweh shrine, but that goes way back, way back. Um, do I have any haunted objects? I don't think so. I don't think so. Um, I don't have any. I don't have especially bad luck. Um, so no, I don't think I have anything haunted. Maybe I do. I don't know. Have you ever experienced any problem or trouble because you're learning this stuff? I don't think so. I don't think so. It seems like mostly my life is pretty good, at least these days. So I've never had any kind of problems. Never had any kind of problems with this stuff. Um, all right, let me scroll up and Get a few more questions before I start to wrap up. Um, I kind of wish I had some haunted stuff. I'd love to go to a haunted place. Everywhere I go that people say is haunted, it's just like the it's just a place. I've never gone anywhere that's haunted, and I've always wanted to go to a haunted place and like see a ghost. But every time I go to a every time I go to a haunted place, I always wanted to see a ghost, but then they never show up. I'm beginning to think that ghosts don't like me. And the way they show they dislike me is not by like opening my door or slamming my cabinets. They just don't like me by like not showing up. Do you practice Solomonic magic? No, I do not. I do not. Um, so no, I do not practice Solomonic magic. Um, let me scroll back up. Um, let's see. Ba, ba, ba. Yeah, the treatise on the left-hand side has a lot about Lilith. Yeah, and about various Liliths. It's not just one. That text actually has a lot about various Liliths. So there are many more Liliths, Liliths in that text. Have I had contact with Ariel Bart Sadok? Yeah, I have. He and I talked a little bit over email, just a little bit over email here and there. He's much more on the doing Kabbalah, and I'm much more on the studying Kabbalah side of things. But he seems to have a very deep Kabbalah knowledge, very deep Kabbalah knowledge. Let's see. Let's scroll back up and get some more. Are Egyptian deities the origin of Gnosticism? Probably not. Probably not. I think that the origin of at least I think Gnosticism probably has its origins in a kind of renegade Judaism, actually. Um, a weird kind of renegade Judaism, but a certain kind of renegade Judaism. Let's see. Gotta block people. And you can. I'm all about having people come in, but the one thing I will not tolerate is people coming in and like condemning people based on their own spiritual beliefs. And I don't like it, not because I think it's like inherently bad or whatever, but I think it's boring. And I don't want you to be boring on my channel. If you're going to be evil in an interesting way, not be evil in I'm believe in X and you're all going to go to hell because you don't believe in X. That's not interesting. That's just boring. So, um, um, well, you're one of the reasons you're in a degree field. Oh, that's awesome, MG laughing. Um, good for you, man. Good for you. Glad to have influenced anyone positively. I'm all about that. Thank you. Destiny asks, how do you feel about a magical tradition such as the Golden Dawn using the Hebrew alphabet, Jewish mythology, whatever? I think that I only feel uncomfortable about it because a lot of those guys are anti-Semites. Like if you're going to use Hebrew and use Kabbalah or use Jewish mythology, fine. I don't have any problem with that. Cross-cultural exchange and cross-cultural transmission of things is a norm. I think we have this really weird allergy to like we're so worried about cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation to me is not really what I'm that concerned about. I'm more concerned about cultural imperialism. And what I don't want is a bunch of Victorian dudes who look down on brown people and Indian people and who look down on Jews, who think that Jews are inferior, who are anti-Semites or whatever. And they just steal from other people's religious and cultural traditions and appropriate it to themselves. To me, that's imperialism. That's cultural imperialism. That's gross, and I don't like that. This is gross. It's also lazy, and I dislike it more for its laziness. If you're engaged with Hindus or Jews or whoever, South American shamans, if you're engaged with people and you're part of a respectful relationship with people, and you find aspects of their spirituality powerful, and you incorporate those aspects of your spirituality into your own in a respectful, dynamic, responsible way, that's awesome. Good for you. That's amazing. That's like exactly what we want in the world. We want each other in conversation, learning from each other, and sort of generating new things through that kind of communion with one another. So so when I see the Golden Dawn or things like that in the 19th century, my concern is not that they borrowed stuff from Judaism. My concern is that they were anti-Semites doing it. Many of them were, not all of them. Some of them were not. But when I read Crowley just like talking crap about Hindus and talking crap about Indian people and talking crap about Jews, I'm like, you can go sit and spin, bro. Like, I don't have any respect for that stuff. So yeah, I think that we have too much of an anxiety around closed practice and or too much of anxiety around cultural appropriation. I think that anxiety is a good correction for centuries of cultural imperialism, but I think it may be overpendulated. And I think the thing that we need to do is take that overpendulation and begin swinging it somewhere back toward the center. Um, again, in a respectful, responsible way. So yeah, my concern is not that they use Jewish mythology or Hebrew whatever. It's my concern is that they're anti-Semites doing it. That's what I don't like. They're cultural imperialists. So that's my read on that. But yeah, Destiny, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. That's an amazing question. Um, uh, have I ever thought on going Jeopardy? Definitely not. um, definitely not. Oh wow, I'm getting like D&D. Of course, always Esoterica never can have a live stream without some good D&D questions. Um, um, where's recommendations for running a D&D campaign? Um, oh, that's such a big question. I can't answer that. Not in the 5 minutes I have left. Sorry, the Quintus. I need to do just D&D consultation live streams. I think that one might go over. So maybe at some point I'll do that. Um, um, all right, let me scroll back up and grab a couple of more. Uh, uh, goodbye, anti-Semite people. You get blocked. Don't bring it here. Don't bring anti-Semitism and racism in this chat. Not having it. People are like the amount of people who are attracted to esotericism who also happen to be like complete jokes of belief systems blows my mind. The amount of like racist and misogynist, it's just like sad. Joseph Bates, thank you so much for the for the for the I guess it's a doggy, but thank you so much for the donation. Looking for literature concerning the Sumerian tradition of Hieros Gamos. Michael, I'm not sure what do you mean by the. I mean, Hieros Gamos is mostly a Greek idea. It's a Greek word, even. I don't know any. Do you have a particular things you're looking for, like the sacred marriage of whom? I'm not sure specifically what you're looking for. I'm sorry, I don't know more of what you're asking about. Um, yeah, that's right, Tathamon. Yeah, if you're gonna insult me, be funny. Um, if you're gonna be, like I said, if you're gonna be evil and racist and misogynist, then like these be interesting. Like, um, not boring old Nazism. It's like, oh god, another one of these guys. That stuff is so boring. Um, yeah, I'm just like, Ashley doing. Why do I go by Justin instead of James? I don't know. That's what my mom called me. My mom always called me Justin, not James, so I go by Justin. My Hebrew name is Betzalel, if that is interesting to anyone. My Hebrew name is Betzalel. So if you want to really call my secret name, my secret magical name, you can call me Betzalel. Yeah, I want to come. I want to really want to get like one of those cool secret Latin names, like Perdurabo or something. Um, um, but yeah, I have to join a cool order to get one of those cool names. All right. Yeah, I'm glad most of you guys are also on team on team anti-bigotry. It's just like super gross. And again, it's just like if you're gonna be, it's so boring. All right, all right, folks. I'm gonna start wrapping up. Yeah, feel free to bind me with my secret Hebrew name. That would be great. Yeah, because it's so secret that I get called it every time I go read the Torah in the synagogue. So it's that secret. Um, but yeah. Um, all right, folks. Um, well, let me just say again, the wrapping up, we're on the 2 hour mark, and there's a bunch of people in the chat. But let me just say again, 2 years of esoterica, folks. 2 years of esoterica. Hey, Andrew. Andrew is the patron, the really amazing patron of Angela Puka. Again, if folks haven't gone on to Angela's symposium, you need to do it. Um, yeah, thank you, Andrew. You're such a tireless supporter of Angela. I really appreciate you for that as well. But again, folks, let me just say, 2 years of esoterica. My arm is spinning. So gross. Um, uh, I'm just again bowled away by how much support and love I get from y'all. It makes my life better every day. I am just incredibly thankful for all of your support. And if you want to keep the channel going, again, if you really benefit from the channel, considering heading over to the Patreon, you can find the link over there in the top of the chat. Again, $5 a month. You can pay like a whole year in advance. It's like $50 or something like that. You can pay a whole year in advance. That makes this channel possible. And I I I can't teach this stuff at the university because they won't let me. And I think that insofar as y'all want access to this amount of material, your support makes it possible. So I know I sound like NPR or whatever, or my pledge drive, but yeah, it kind of is a pledge drive. But I just want to say thank you for an amazing first 2 years. I want to pledge to you that there's a lot more years in Esoterica, and I want to continue doing live streams, continue producing the best content I can, producing all kinds of stuff like this. I want to do some D&D stuff. If you guys are part of like D&D communities and you know D&D people that might want to work with Esoterica to do some Esoterica does D&D content, I would absolutely love. Um, I'd love to be in touch with those people. So feel free to reach out to those guys if you guys are on the D&D train. But again, many thanks for your support over the past 2 years, for sharing content, for leaving comments, for tweeting things out, for hanging out live streams, for correcting me when I make mistakes. Very important task as well. So I'm I'm just again want to say thank you. I really want to say again thank you for a whole amazing couple of years here at Esoterica, and I'm looking forward to many more years to come. Thank you for letting me serve you in terms of making this content, and yeah, it's been great. So, all right, folks, I'm going to go hang out with my kids and my family and get ready for Shabbat. Have some wine and toast to 2 wonderful years at Esoterica. So again, thank you all so much. I just want to wish all of you the very best rest. I hope that if you observe the Shabbat, that you have a wonderful rest. And if you don't observe the Shabbat, I hope you give yourself a Shabbat. Just a give yourself the rest you deserve. Give yourself the care you deserve, because everybody deserves to be cared about and to care for themselves. So, folks, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for this last couple of years. And next week we're coming back right at you. Next week, the Rephaim. We're going to talk about the Rephaim. I know you guys all know about the Nephilim. You're on the Nephilim camp, but the Rephaim are where it's at, folks. The Rephaim are the coolest weirdos in the Bible. So we're going to be talking about the Rephaim starting next week. Will be it. Next week's episode. All right, folks. Well, thank you again so much. I'll be around, and hope you can join me on the next live stream. So it'll be 3 weeks from today, 4 weeks from today. We'll do another live stream, take more questions, hang out, and thank you so much for a wonderful couple of years. And I look forward to more years to come. Again, thank you again, all. Have a great night.